So good day, everyone. My name's Tine McDonald, Chair of Nature Restoration Alliance Australia, formerly the Restoration Decade Alliance. So today, World Environment Day 2026 marks 5 years since our inception as a consortium of Australian restoration organisations. RDA is going great guns, but now that we're over halfway through the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, RDA's steering committee identified that now is the perfect time to incorporate as a long-term alliance and with a new name, Nature Restoration Alliance Australia, NRAA. So this reflects the imperative to extend restoration far longer than the end of the current decade. And we recognise that it's time to put our consortium's roots down deeper. So our launch today includes a short speech from Dr Jame Fitzsimons, followed by a video snapshot of the work of our members, prepared by the members in their own words. Before introducing our guest speaker, though, I'd like to acknowledge that our member groups recognise they work on unceded Indigenous lands and waters, and the consequence of this recognition is that each engages in, or in some practical way supports, Indigenous-led projects restoring nature and culture. So I'm honoured to introduce Dr Jame Fitzsimons, who will shortly give the launch speech. So James, you can go ahead and share your screen if you like at this point, and I'll continue with the introduction. James is the Nature Conservancy's Senior Advisor, Global Protection Strategies. So that's a global role. Having worked for many years in the Nature Conservancy Australia, masterminding restoration strategies and advocacy. Among other things, he also holds adjunct professorships at Deakin University and the University of Tasmania, with particular research interests in protected area policy, practical conservation planning, and mechanisms to integrate conservation outcomes in public and private lands and waters. So James is also on Australia's Nature Repair Market Committee as the committee's ecological science expert. But importantly for us, he was also personally instrumental in helping advise our alliance's formation 5 years ago. So welcome, James. Please go ahead and do us the honour of formally launching our long-term identity as the Nature Restoration Alliance Australia.
Thank you, T, and hello everyone, and thanks you, T, and for all your leadership in restoration for many decades in Australia. Look, it's really great to be here to launch this new name and new ambition for Nature Restoration Alliance Australia. I'm going to give a little bit of background, and I've been really lucky in many ways to be, I guess, involved in many different types of restoration around Australia in the past 18 or so years with the Nature Conservancy, through to helping groups like Greening Australia and Bush Heritage Australia undertake really innovative biodiverse restoration and carbon plantings in our biodiversity hotspot of southwestern Australia as part of the Gondwana Link initiative, through to some of the largest wetland restoration projects in the country, through to this area in the Low Bidgie landscape at the end of the Murrumbidgee River, where Narra Tribal Council in particular have been undertaking really innovative floodplain restoration projects, taking this property, Guyini, from a pretty dry area originally through to the glory that it once was, and really bringing back the bird life, the frog life, and the incredible biodiversity of this landscape. Through to some of the early work working with NAILSMA and land councils in Northern Australia by bringing back an ecological process to restore our northern tropical savannas, and what's gone on to be one of the largest single payment for ecosystem services types of projects in the world, now covering a large part of northern savannas in Northern Australia. Through to things that we might not think about as typical restoration, but helping acquire new conservation areas and often relieving them of some of the degrading processes of the past, such as potentially overgrazing, removing weeds and pests and the like. And then through to some of perhaps the higher profile work of restoring Australia's lost oyster reefs. And so bringing many of our muddy bottoms back to flourishing reefs, which often occurred across almost all of our wetlands, estuaries and bays in southern Australia and eastern Australia pre-European settlement. But we've lost pretty much all of them. But we're bringing those back and aim to have about 60 reefs back in existence by 2030. And Australian NGOs really do bat above their weight in terms of the scale and the science of restoration in Australia across all of these diverse ecosystems. And recently, some of this was recognised by the UN Environment Program, where they recognised the shellfish reef restoration work in Australia, Reef Builder, as a restoration flagship, a global restoration flagship. Speaking of the UN, we are in this decade of ecosystem restoration, and that's been really important to bring profile to the need for ecosystem restoration across the world. But I think one of the big drivers of activity now and focus on this process has been the signing of the Convention on Biological Diversity's Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework in late 2022. And there's 23 targets in there. High profile ones include the 30 by 30 protection target, but probably one of the most ambitious targets is Target 2 from the Global Biodiversity Framework. And that really aims to restore 30% of all degraded ecosystems by 2030. Now, that's a really big, ambitious task. And yes, there might be some ambiguity in some of those words in the target and debates on the meaning, but nonetheless, the intention is clear. We've got a really big job to do to be restoring 30% of all degraded ecosystems by 2030. So that's a reminder, 4 years' time. Each country has to respond to the convention about how they are going to implement those targets that are set globally. So Australia has done so as part of its National Strategy for Nature in 2024. They put out this document. They haven't quite gone as far as 30% of all degraded ecosystems. They've talked about priority degraded areas under effective restoration by 2030. Still, nonetheless, this is a fairly big job at hand for us as a nation. Earlier this year, the implementation plan was put out in terms of how, as a sector and as government, the plans are to do this work. And so for that target, for the restoration target, what the future focus is around is developing criteria and supporting principles to prioritise degraded areas for restoration nationally. Now, we probably need to get on with that pretty quickly. We've only got 4 years left to meet that target, and we need to get on with identifying those areas, but we also need to get on with the doing very quickly as well. The other critical focus they have in here is defining effective restoration for the purpose of this target. And again, there's plenty of good science-based thought out there and guidance globally. And we really need to be escalating this to ensure that we're not delaying trying to define terms. We really need to be getting on with the restoration, which is what the global ambition is all about. This is where the alliance is really, really critical. It's using that long activity on the ground, great science, great practice, and scale to really work with the federal government, work with the states to really help speed up some of this policy and implementation process. And it's interesting. So other parts of the conservation sector, I guess, have had much more agreement and policy coherence across the nation for a long time, such as the establishment of protected areas as part of our national reserve system. And soon after the Global Biodiversity Framework was signed, the Australian government got on with having new guidelines for achieving 30% protection on land by 2030. We don't have the same guidance or same policy or policy cohesion in Australia for restoration. But nonetheless, we do have a number of really good documents that are out there to help guide us and help us get on with it pretty quickly. So the work by the Wentworth Group, for instance, a blueprint to repair Australia's landscapes. Of course, the Alliance's Nature Positive Restoration Plan and the ACIUCN's work with the Alliance that was put out late last year as well. So there's plenty of guidance to get on with doing the work that we need to. So that's really what the focus should be from now on. Look, it's interesting working with the Nature Repair Committee and trying to, I guess, build in a lot of the really important science and technical guidance that we all know is critical for our restoration work across the country, and bringing that sort of guidance into legislative instruments. And as you know, it's often quite an interesting challenge. We are one of the first countries in the world to attempt to start doing this. And again, I'd encourage the Alliance to be sort of fully engaged in these processes, look closely at the methods, at the various consultation processes, and really provide that strong technical on-ground feedback that I know you all have to help make these the best methods they possibly can. So look, I'd like to sort of emphasise that, as we all know, restoration is tangible. it engages people, and it does give hope. And of course, it's media friendly, and not all of our conservation activities are like that. So we really need to be kind of emphasising this really critical part of the work that we do every day. So for all of these reasons, the role of the Nature Restoration Alliance Australia is absolutely critical. As individual organisations, you are demonstrating diverse approaches on the ground and increasingly scaling up that work. But as an alliance, you're able to act as a powerful collective voice to influence policy and practice at a much larger scale. The change of the name is really important recognition that obviously this work's going well beyond 2030, and we need to keep that alliance going beyond 2030. That's not to say that we need to be putting our foot off the accelerator around these big ambitious targets we have for 2030, but really it's that recognition that this partnership is a long-term partnership and a long-term ambition to restoring Australia's nature. So thank you for all the work that you do as individuals, as organisations. I'm thrilled that this new name really reflects that long-term ambition for restoration and conservation in Australia that I know that you all have. Thank you, T, and back to you.
Thank you very much, James. Yeah, look, I couldn't agree with you more. Very important messages that you've delivered to us. Thank you so much. The work of the Alliance members really is awesome. So I feel very honoured to be helping to lead this process now. We can hear in their own words what some of our members are able to contribute to this collective ambition. So we'll now play a video compiled recently to act as a portrait of our alliance. It's only a snapshot because a few weren't able to contribute, and we'll hopefully be able to include their messages later. But this little video goes for 27 minutes. We'll place it on our website in a week or so. So if you do need to duck back to work before it ends today, you'll be able to catch it later. But Suzanne, if you could click on that video now, we'll listen to it. Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Tine McDonald, Chair of the NRAA. The Nature Restoration Alliance Australia is made up of more than 25 outstanding nature restoration-focused organisations, as you'll see in this video. Each has an amazing contribution to make, but our collaborative work involves advocating about the importance of nature restoration to governments, industry and community, as well as sharing best practices in ecological restoration. All the work you'll hear described in this video is hugely important to increase the area and health of our authentic native ecosystems, both terrestrial and aquatic. And there's truth to what people say, that this task of ecological restoration is one of the most important actions for Australia in the 21st century. Not only because of its ecological importance, but because it can function as a unifying social principle, strengthening our national identity and providing a measure of our maturity as a nation.
Nature Restoration Alliance Australia. All four words in the name are essential to our identity. Hello, I'm Todd Dudley, the President of the North East Bioregional Network from North East Tasmania. The North East Bioregional Network is a community-based nature conservation organisation focused on the protection, maintenance and restoration of the natural environment in North East Tasmania. Our largest project is Restore Skyline Tier, which involves landscape scale regeneration of radiata pine plantation back to biodiverse native forest in several coastal catchments. We have a number of other active projects, including restoring roadside vegetation, quarries, sand dunes and ex-waste transfer stations. We have a strong focus on using facilitated natural regeneration and direct seeding rather than planting in our projects, as well as documenting the mental and physical health benefits associated with participating in ecological restoration projects. Nature is not a generic term, it is particular. Ideally, ecological restoration projects not only revive our standing native flora, fauna and landscapes, but also demonstrate that investing in nature conservation can provide social and economic benefits to the communities wherever these projects take place. Ecological restoration is an authentically Australian response to the unique life of this continent for both nature and its people.
Hello, my name is Tanya Pritchard and I work for WWF Australia. The word nature in our alliance's name is of primary importance because the conservation of native ecosystems, plants and animals is our main focus. In Australia, WWF plays a critical role in restoration at scale. We work with landholders, Indigenous partners, community groups, government and the private sector to restore degraded landscapes, reconnect habitats and bring species back from the brink of extinction like the koala. Through initiatives such as koala habitat restoration, landscape scale reforestation, and innovative models like the Koala Friendly Carbon Initiative, we're helping to turn fragmented landscapes into coordinated, measurable impact. We also invest in science, monitoring, and partnerships to ensure restoration delivers real outcomes for biodiversity and climate, while supporting livelihoods and regional communities. The Nature Restoration Alliance represents a powerful opportunity to accelerate this work by aligning efforts, pooling expertise, and unlocking new investment. The Alliance has enormous potential to help nature recover at the scale and speed that's needed. Together, we can move from isolated projects to a true restoration movement, one that gives Australia's ecosystems a genuine chance to thrive again.
Hi, I'm Valerie Hagger and I'm a board member of the Society for Ecological Restoration Australasia. The word restoration in our alliance's name is pivotal. We encourage ecological restoration, which means repairing both ecological integrity and the resilience of diverse native ecosystems. These principles are encapsulated in the SARA-led standards. So who is SARA? We connect and support the Australasian community to advance ecological restoration. Our mission is to promote restoration to sustain biodiversity and re-establish a healthy relationship between nature and culture. We aim to connect science and on-ground restoration, and to promote awareness of restoration for both public and policy support. Importantly, we also have biannual conferences to promote ecological restoration and to connect our restoration professionals. And you can check out our website for our latest conference coming up.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Gary Howling. I'm the Chief Executive Officer and Executive Director of Great Eastern Ranges Limited. Why is the word alliance so important? From the point of view of the Great Eastern Ranges Initiative, the word alliance involves or infers organisations that share a common need and ambition and agree to combine their skills and capacities to achieve those ends. Now, Great Eastern Ranges itself, as a mission, is taking on the role of bringing people together to link efforts right the way across Eastern Australia, across our forest and woodland zone, to sustain a 3,600 kilometre corridor of life that runs from Tasmania to Cape York and beyond. We're a small not-for-profit organisation. We've got 20 years of background and experience in working in that space. Our work revolves around building alliances with aligned organisations from local community groups through to major national and international NGOs. So from a Great Eastern Ranges point of view, a vision on this scale can only be achieved through alliances, both within our own network, but also drawing on the skills and capacity, the knowledge and experience of organisations within the wider NRAA family.
G'day, I'm Damien Cook from the Wetland Revival Trust.
Hello, I'm Taj Lane from Wetland Revival Trust. I'm from Yorta Yorta Nation and Barappa Barappa Nation. The word Australia in my opinion, doesn't just relate to the country, but it relates to our culture as well. My perspective of country is being out in bush, hearing the birds and seeing scar trees and ring trees and seeing what my ancestors used to live in. Having the opportunity to restore wetlands and learning new things each and every day, for me, it's found a really, really big spot in my heart. Restoring, for me, is being able to do something and see a difference. And a lot of the stuff that they've already done since I've started is I've seen a big difference in that. It's really big with culture. When we're working at some places where I'm from, I see pretty big cultural evidence and see quite a lot of like Aboriginal sacred sites. And being able to find new things is pretty big for me. Like knowing that my ancestors were once there is pretty cool to see. I come across a grinding stone, and about 50 meters away, there was a ring tree pointing directly towards it. And we did a cultural heritage survey out there with the North Central CMA. And about 5 meters away from the grinding stone, some other specialised people that knew what they were looking for actually found human remains. Even at our reserve at Murray West, we've found clay balls, and we've found clay balls that have fingerprints in them as well. Pretty cool, knowing that they've been held for hundreds, if not thousands of years before us.
So Wetland Revival Trust is absolutely committed to working with First Nations peoples, and actually the organisation director is Auntie Marilyn Nichols. So we have we've worked a lot with Auntie Marilyn to develop the cultural aspects of the restoration of what we're doing. So it's fundamental to us that the on-ground works that we do, the restoration work that we do, is we really prioritise providing employment for First Nations people. And it's all done through the cultural lens. So Auntie Marilyn sort of makes sure that we're sticking to what we should be doing from a cultural perspective.
Hello, my name is John Dixon from the Global Evergreening Alliance. While the NRAA focuses on nature restoration within Australia, the Global Alliance, for which I work pro bono, is focused quite strongly on international sharing of knowledge, especially in Africa and Asia, and we share the Australian experience with other countries in our region and beyond. And we also bring back ideas from other parts of the world that can be applied within Australia, especially related to local farmer and community organisation, who, after all, manage and improve and restore our landscapes. We are a bridge.
Hi, I'm Rob Brewster from the Invasive Species Council. Restoration in Australia requires all of us to address the many factors driving the decline of Australia's ecosystems. Australia is facing a profound environmental crisis. We have the worst mammal extinction rate in the world, largely driven by a relentless wave of invasive species like cats, foxes, and unmanaged herbivores that outcompete and prey upon our unique wildlife and the places they live. The Invasive Species Council stands at the absolute front line of this battle, fiercely advocating for strong policies, biosecurity controls, and coordinated community action needed to manage these threats and identify and stop further threats from entering our country. Our rewilding program is designed to show Australians what our landscapes can look like when invasives are excluded or properly managed. It provides us with real hope. It provides us with a long-term vision. It reminds us what Australia once was and what we could be again if we manage invasive species better. Invasive Species Council is dedicated to seeing a wildlife revival in Australia, but this can only happen if we prioritise improving the management of invasive species.
Hello, my name is Noel Corkery. I'm a registered landscape architect and a founding director of the Landscape Foundation of Australia. LFA is a not-for-profit registered charity that is taking action to support nature in the urban landscapes of Australian cities and towns, where 90% of us live. Our activities are guided by three strategic pillars. The first is investing in knowledge and future leaders by awarding scholarships and fellowships to early career professionals. We also fund and manage the Landscape Performance Case Studies program, which assesses the performance of completed urban landscape projects to generate new knowledge and achieve better future project outcomes. We provide our expertise to research teams, such as the Schoolyard Greenprint project, which will help create better outdoor spaces in which students can engage with each other and with nature for their mutual health and well-being. The second strategic pillar is strengthening community capacity to restore and manage urban landscapes. This includes helping the Women's Housing Company to design and implement landscape upgrades to their residential properties which house women experiencing accommodation stress. A third strategic pillar is advocating for urban green infrastructure, which includes parks, open spaces, street trees, remnant bushlands, riparian corridors, and other urban landscapes, for which we advocate that it be treated as a distinct asset class and sustainably funded and managed in the same way as our other urban infrastructure. LFA is pleased to be collaborating with other members of the Alliance to help restore and support nature in cities and towns across Australia.
G'day, my name is Craig Copeland. I'm the founder of Ozfish. We are a national organisation restoring waterways across the country and engaging recreational fishers in that activity. Most of the fish habitats that we've had around the country that are important to fish, seagrass and shellfish and salt marsh and mangroves and all the riparian zone, we've lost and or significantly degraded. The future depends on what we can do to restore these habitats. We are obligated to leave our ecosystems in a better situation than we found them. And together, we can do a better job. So Ozfish is really, doing what it can, but when we're working in partnership with other groups across the country, as we are with the Nature Restoration Alliance Australia, we are making a difference.
Hi, I'm Megan Saunders from the Australasian Coastal Restoration Network. Restoration in Australia includes restoration of habitats and biodiversity in coastal and marine environments. The ACRN is a network of professionals in the Australasian region, which connects people across geographies, habitats, and different restoration techniques and organizations. We have a newsletter, we run online webinars, and we have an annual symposium, which includes workshops. Together, the ACRN is connecting people across the Australasian region with the aim of scaling up restoration in coastal and marine environments.
It's Mark Backman here from Nature Glenelg Trust. Freshwater wetland restoration opportunities exist all over Australia, come in many forms, and often involve working alongside local communities to rethink how we view and treat the landscape. By carefully reversing the impacts of artificial drainage, we can work with nature to unlock spontaneous, often spectacular ecosystem recovery and deliver a range of corresponding carbon, water, and biodiversity benefits as wetland plants and animals capitalise on the return of water and spring back to life. Nature Glenelg Trust has been delivering a wide range of nature restoration projects since 2012 on both public and private land and working with First Nations people in Victoria, South Australia, Tasmania and New South Wales. Our observation is that tremendous outcomes are possible and sometimes emerge in unexpected places when we take the time to get to know both the landscape and the people who care for it. And best of all, the results, which speaks for themselves, create lasting places for perpetual ecological recovery and community connection with nature. We're proud to be part of Nature Restoration Alliance Australia and its positive vision for the future of our biodiverse continent.
Hi, my name is Erin Healy. I'm an environmental engineer and project manager with the Malone Institute. The Malone Institute is a not-for-profit organisation focused on research, education and advocacy for better water management on our Australian farms. Landscape rehydration is needed in many landscapes because they've lost their ability to function, which is their ability to hold, to store and to cycle water, carbon and nutrients. Our goal is to support farmers and communities to navigate their unique challenges when it comes to water management, whether that be drought resilience, flood mitigation, bushfire refuge, biodiversity or water quality. We do that by combining technical expertise around natural infrastructure and nature-based solutions with practical land management solutions. So Maloon's ethos is centred around working at the catchment and the community scale. We focus on wide-scale collaboration and working at a grassroots approach with community. We do this by taking a community of practice approach, building trust and supporting learning through workshops and field days, multi-day courses, mentoring and local partnerships. And that's how we create lasting water stewardship in communities.
Hi, I'm Hedley Grantham, Chief Scientist at Bush Heritage Australia and a member of the Nature Restoration Alliance Australia. Bush Heritage's work involves buying and managing land for conservation, and we also partner with traditional custodians and other landholders to care for country. Through our conservation program, we repair degraded ecosystems by tackling invasive species, restoring native habitat, and improving landscape function. We also work in cleared areas where we actively revegetate, re-establishing native plants to rebuild habitat, reconnect fragmented landscapes, and support the return of biodiversity. Across Australia, we're seeing that when nature is given a chance to recover, it responds quickly. Habitats improve, native species return, and landscapes become more resilient to climate change. By working together, scientists, practitioners, traditional custodians and local communities, together we can restore and protect these places for future generations.
Hi, I'm James Link from Landcare Australia. Restoration in Australia gained momentum with the rise of landcare, empowering landholders and communities to repair degraded land, water and biodiversity across the country. At Landcare Australia, we believe everyone has a role to play in restoring the landscapes and ecosystems that sustain us. For more than 35 years, we've worked alongside communities, farmers, traditional owners and partners, supporting practical on-ground action that protects our soils, water, biodiversity and food systems. From local projects to large-scale restoration, Landcare is powered by people. Over 100,000 volunteers and thousands of community groups working together to heal and regenerate our land. As we face growing challenges from climate change and biodiversity loss, this work has never been more important. Landcare Australia supports the people and projects restoring our environment on the ground. We work with communities, farmers and partners across the country, managing grants programs, developing education resources, sharing knowledge, and delivering large-scale restoration projects. Through collaboration, innovation and shared knowledge, we're building healthier landscapes, stronger communities, and a more resilient future for Australia.
I'm Andrea Briggs. I'm the First Nations Liaison Officer at the National Landcare Network. Restoration is powerful when it is community-driven and actively supported. Through advocacy and network support, it brings communities together and strengthens the foundations that help restore landscapes and care for country for future generations.
G'day, I'm Keith Bradby from Gondwanley. We're working across 1,000 kilometres of southwestern Australia to connect and restore ecosystems, to connect and restore communities, and to do what we can to help our First Nations colleagues renew their culture and their custodianship of the land. It's working. We're at scale. There's something like 65,000 hectares of land has been brought into the program so far, but we've also helped communities identify areas like the 16 million hectare Great Western Woodland, largest remaining temperate woodland on Earth. And of course, a lot of work is happening in the wet forests where our management just needs to get a lot better. And we've got to tackle the big issues of drying climate, including fire. And we're delighted to be working with colleagues in NRAA to help give restoration the national unity that it needs and to be able to swap notes and learn from each other.
Hello, I'm Jen Ford from the Australian Association of Bush Regenerators, known as ARBA. For 4 decades, ARBA has been drawing lessons from its practitioner members about harnessing natural regeneration in restoration. This has helped ARBA improve training and raise standards of practice in both the extensive bush regen contractor industry around Australia, as well as the large bush care movement. This is partly done through training advocacy, education materials, and ARBA's practitioner and site assessor accreditation systems. Working to harness natural regeneration has potential to markedly increase the scale of high-quality restoration carried out across Australia. People often assume that high levels of weed domination mean that there's no regen potential, when this is absolutely not the case. Regen potential is not just confined to remnant or regrowth in their edges. Long cleared and grazed areas often contain gradients of surprising regeneration potential. Harnessing that regeneration potential across the landscape is key to expanding the number and abundance of native plant populations. So ensuring that we work with nature and utilise its recovery potential better ensures that restoration at scale is both effective and cost efficient. We really look forward to continuing to work with all the other members of the NRAA and to encourage the scaling up of restoration through site-appropriate approaches.
Hi, I'm Blair Parsons, the Director of Impact for Greening Australia. Scaling up restoration is essential. While regeneration in remnant ecosystems is critical, at Greening Australia we mainly focus on reconstructing ecosystems across vast cleared areas, creating new habitat and landscape connectivity at scale. As an active member of NRAA, Greening Australia revegetates thousands of hectares, bringing degraded land back to life. This sequesters carbon, builds ecological resilience, and protects the land and communities that depend on it. Restored landscapes support wildlife habitat, allowing threatened species to move, breed, and survive. They also support Indigenous land management and culture, enhance productivity, generate jobs in regional communities, and strengthen the restoration economy across Australia. Every hectare restored is a contribution to a healthier, more connected landscape for wildlife, for people, and for future generations.
Hi, I'm Andrew Fanny from Seeding Natives, a member of the NRAA. We're scaling up restoration through direct seeding in South Australia, utilising our innovative multi-mix seeding machinery that sows 100% of the ground to sow a complete ecosystem in one machinery pass. Scaling up restoration not only requires innovative methods, but also requires extensive native seed production for hundreds, if not thousands, of species across the variety of regions in our country, representing an extensive array of ecosystems. Genetically robust seed supply is crucial for the successful scaling up of restoration. And at Seeding Natives, we don't agree with taking vast amounts of seed from the wild. At Seeding Natives, we undertake large-scale native seed production for the species we sow in all of our restoration projects. The NRAA gives the opportunity for many amazing not-for-profit organisations to unite under one banner, to share, plan and strategise the saving of our precious ecosystems we have in our country.
Hi, I'm Kathy Isles from the Australian Seed Bank Partnership, a national network focused on conserving Australia's plant diversity. Our native flora is both locally precious and globally significant, with 88% of plants occurring nowhere else on Earth. Our alliance includes the 10 conservation seed banks around Australia, our international partner, the Millennium Seed Bank Q, as well as national peak non-government plant conservation and restoration organisations. The need to sustainably bank native seed has never been greater, as a safeguard against species loss and the foundation to restore plant populations. These collections provide the genetic material to support the science we need to understand the response and adaptability of plants to environmental changes. Both diversity and adaptation traits are critical to effective restoration of our landscapes. Importantly, for members of the Nature Restoration Alliance Australia, the Seed Partnership shares this knowledge and has developed guidelines for restoration practitioners about seed collecting and banking. Through our virtual seed bank portal, seed collection and germination information is publicly accessible for over 18,000 plant species held in seed banks. Conservation thrives on collaboration, and every recovery effort matters. We are proud to be part of Nature Restoration Alliance Australia.
Wow. Thanks everyone for your contributions to this video. Yeah, I think you'd agree that There's a great strength in the collaboration that we have between all these very strong organisations. So watch this space, and thank you, everybody. I think we can declare our alliance launched. Thanks for being with us today. Bye now.